Now, you wouldn't have known this if you paid any attention to mainstream media last week, but there was a major victory for democracy. No, I'm not talking about Donald Trump's inauguration and the United States elections, but I'm talking about Gambia. In Gambia, there was an election last December, and a new man, Adama Barrow, was voted by the people to be the new president. The old president, Jammeh, who had been in charge for 22 years and came to power through a coup, refused to go. He said there had been voter fraud and elections did not happen fairly. He bunkered down in his palace and called a state of emergency. However, the armed forces refused to heed his call, and also police said no, we will declare loyalty to the new president. One by one, members of his cabinet and parliament stepped down, stating that Jammeh had indeed lost, and it was now time for Barrow, the new president, to take charge of Gambia. Fear started to arise in the country. Since its independence in the 1950s, there had never been a peaceful transfer of power. It always happened with lots of bloodshed and lots of fighting in the streets. So when Jammeh refused to go, a lot of countries became very, very cautious and very, very scared. Western and European countries started to evacuate their citizens, fearing a bloodbath. But this is not what happened. When Jammeh's deadline of stepping down passed, surrounding African countries stepped up and stepped in. About 7,000 soldiers started to gather around the border, soldiers from Nigeria, Senegal, and Ghana. And when the deadline passed, they moved into the country. They had permission to do so from the UN Security Council and the African Nation Council. But moving in the country was the only thing they did. They moved into Gambia and then stopped. They did not start fighting and they did not press on towards the capital. Instead, this was the moment they showed to Jammeh, we are very serious. You have to leave. And at this point, diplomacy took over. First, Nigerian President Buhari offered Jammeh asylum, but this was refused. Jammeh said he wanted amnesty. He did not want to be prosecuted for any crimes he might have committed during his 22-year reign. He also wanted to stay in Gambia, keep everything he owned, and keep his own guards to protect his own safety. The leaders of the African nations made Jammeh very clear they could not guarantee his safety if he stayed in Gambia, and for the sake of the country, it would be better if he left. So, in a last attempt, not the president of Nigeria, but the president of Equatorial Guinea approached Jammeh and offered him asylum. And this made a big difference, because in contrast to Nigeria, Equatorial Guinea is not an affiliate of the International Court of Criminal Justice in The Hague in the Netherlands. Meaning if Jammeh left to that country, he could not be extradited and he could not be prosecuted for any crimes he had committed in those 22 years. After long consideration and several days in hiding, he took that offer. He said there should be no more bloodshed in Gambia. He took his possessions, stepped on a plane, and left. The people of Gambia then took to the streets dancing and celebrating. The troops of the African nations that had forced him out were received in the capital of Banjul with cheers and dances and lots of parties. When they made inventarization of the state as it was at the moment, it had indeed appeared that Jammeh was stealing significantly from the state. Millions and millions of dollars were taken away, and all luxurious items he had, like dozens of cars, gold, jewelry, it had all vanished. He leaves the state broke. Although they have no more money, not a single person died because of this. Not a single person was shot and killed or thrown in prison because of this. It was a huge victory for democracy, in a country that never had a peaceful transfer of power in over 50, 60 years that it existed. This was a major, major victory for democracy. Let's hope that Gambia will use this to march towards the future and become a blooming, blossoming, and growing, stable democracy in Africa.